Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Knitting Pickle Podcast. My name is Laura and you can find me here on YouTube, Instagram and Ravelry as Penrose Knits. I am a knitter and aspiring knitwear designer and I live in the Midlands in the UK with my husband and my two little kiddies who are at nursery and work today, so I've got the house to myself. It's quiet, it's a really cloudy day, so it's like optimum podcast lighting. Yay! I've got quite a few projects to show you today. Today's episode is a special one because all of the projects that I'm going to show you, my finished objects and whips, are all my own designs, and that's never happened before. It was my goal this year to spend as much time as possible on my own designs, and so far that has been the case. I think at my last count, I've got 9 designs somewhere in the process at the moment, and then like quite a few ideas, and my goal this year was to release 10 designs. Now I'm not like holding myself to that, it's just like a point to aim for, and that would be a pattern a month with 2 months off. That's not going to be like 10 garments, there'll be socks, and I'll probably do a winter accessory set again like I did last year, which will be 3 patterns in one, and actually I've already started that one going, eager. So yeah, that's the aim for this year. I will be sharing some hot new releases at the end of this episode during the Knitty Chat session, so don't worry, it's not just going to be all Penrose knits. And I've also got some exciting news concerning the souffle, which is my latest design, really. Well, no, not my latest design, actually, it's quite old now, but it is due to be released, so some more exciting news about that later. And the other little thing I wanted to do before we get stuck in is announce the winner of the Folly Dolly pattern. In my last episode, I showed you my hot new release, which was the Folly Dolly by Lovely and Yella from Yelly's Wonders, and she kindly donated a pattern to one of you guys. I haven't actually yet drawn the winner because it's been a morning. So I will use the magic of editing and pop the winner right here. Congratulations, you have won. If you could send me an email, I will put my address in the description box, or you can send me a DM on Instagram and I will get that pattern over to you. Right, without further ado, shall we get started? Let's get comfy. I'm wearing my socks. They were in, is it last episode? Yeah, I think so. We should probably start with what I am wearing, and if you have watched my last video, which was a knitting vlog, you will have seen me working on this guy. This is the Chantilly Cardigan. And it is purple, my lord, it is purple. I am not normally one for wearing colour, but when I'm in the mood to wear colour, it's usually pastel, so like mint green or like pale pink, or as it would appear, lilac. I am not a purple person at all, but I think what I mean is I'm not into like dark purple or bright purple, or you know, like Barney the dinosaur purple, but this kind of spring, subtle, lilac, neutrally vibe, I'm all about it. Oh my god, I love it. Anyway, I ramble. This is the Chantilly Cardigan, and this has developed from another design that I have finished, which I should probably show you first actually. It is the Chantilly vest. Ta-da! Now again, I showed this in more detail in my last vlog, so you might want to go and have a little look at that if you haven't yet, but I will obviously go over it now for you. So this was the original idea when it came to this. All I knew in my head was that I wanted this big, deep V wide collar with a ruffle on it, but I couldn't imagine how it would be like on a jumper or anything like that, so I thought, do you know what, I wanted to do a vest for a little while. What is this? Matalan. I wanted to do a vest for a while, so let's do a vest. And I kind of just went into it. Obviously I did a gauge swatch and figured out everything, and I just kind of went for it, and it is, I'd say 90% there. The collar's great, the ruffle's great, however it's too wide for my preference. When it's on, and you can see this more in my vlog, it's quite wide and the shoulder comes quite far out to here, and it kind of leaves a bagginess and a poofiness here, and I think an oversized vest can look really cool. I know Petite Knit's got a few really oversized vests and they look really good, but because of the collar and the ruffle it just felt too much. So my plan is to reduce the size here a little bit and just refine this side a little bit. I also didn't do it long enough because I got a bit bored and I wanted to move on to the next thing. So yeah, the next one will definitely have a lot more length. This is coming up kind of between cropped and full length, and for a vest I think I want full length. A lot of people like cropped for a vest because you can wear it with like dresses and stuff, but I like to tuck my vests into my high-waisted jeans, and I want a lot of extra fabric for that because this one keeps popping out at the front. So yeah, there you go, that's the Chantilly vest, which is the original idea. And when I posted this idea on Instagram, I said I was thinking about maybe doing a jumper or cardigan version, and everybody was like, cardigan, oh my god, yes please. And I was just like, yeah, do you know what? This design is meant to be a cardigan. I think it looks fabulous as a vest, and when I've made the tweaks to the fit, I think it will look even better. But I really think it was destined to be a cardigan. So I did immediately order some yarn from knit.co.uk, my lovely friend Simona. And the cardigan and the vest are both knit with 2 strands of Filcolana Saga, which is a 100% lamb's wool sport weight yarn, and 1 strand of mohair. For this one I use the Lana Gatto silk mohair because it was kind of the closest colour I could get to the Saga, because the Filcolana Telia version of this colour was sold out. And on the vest I think I used a Drops Kid Silk, yes, in a slightly darker shade. Oh, I'm a little bit rambly today. So yeah, you can see that the ruffle is a slightly different colour to the rest of the body, and that is because it's the same yarn used in the body, but the mohair is slightly darker. So by doing that, you kind of get this quite subtle contrast, and this ruffle like really pops, and I really like that look. But for this one, it's obviously oh, my phone just buzzed. With this one, it's obviously much less subtle, even though the mohair is slightly lighter than the purple yarn, and you can kind of see that the ruffle is a slightly different colour, but it's not so obvious. And that was on purpose so that I could show what it looks like all in one solid colour, and I could show what it looks like with a contrast ruffle. Now, that's the yarn. I love the yarn, by the way. The Saga, it was a lot more rustic than I thought it would be when I received it. It felt quite dry to the touch, but once it's washed and blocked, it's just gorgeous. It's a really lovely wool, and a really good price point as well, I think, to the point where I can easily hold it double. And whilst I'm talking about yarn, I should probably talk about the gauge of this and the vest. So we've got 3 different gauges going on here. That's right, 3. The body, so I should probably say, these are actually knit at slightly different gauges. When I knit this one, it was slightly too tight. That's why I went quite short on the body, because my hands were getting quite sore, because this was worked on 5mm needles, and this was worked on 5.5mm needles, and that tiny difference in needle size made such a difference. This one, just the fabric of this and actual knitting of the vest felt really quite tight and awkward, whereas this one just felt and looked a lot more relaxed, and the yarn actually has space to kind of bloom and be how it's supposed to be when it's on the right needle size. So this is technically around an Aran weight, the body, because you've got the 2 strands of sport and 1 strand of lace, roughly equates to an Aran weight. So you could easily knit the body in a single strand of Aran weight yarn. Then your collar is then knit with 1 strand of Saga and 1 strand of mohair, which roughly equates to a DK weight. So you could then go and do your collar in like a contrast in a DK weight yarn, and then the ruffle is just the Saga on its own, in which you could probably only really use like a fingering, or it's not a sport weight yarn, no. See, I've already made this mistake once. Saga is not a sport weight yarn, and I said this in my vlog. It's actually a light fingering. So when I first ordered the Saga, I thought it was a lace weight yarn, and when I got it and I thought it was really thick, I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And I basically did the adding up of the strands maths and didn't quite do it right and assumed it was a sport weight, but it's not. It's a light fingering, so it's between lace and fingering weight, as is Filcolana Arvetta. So you could quite easily use Filcolana Arvetta How Double for this. That's a super wash with nylon, whereas the Saga is 100% lamb's wool, so it's a natural fibre with no process. So it is a light fingering. Oh my gosh. So yes, 2 strands of the Saga plus 1 strand of mohair makes Aran, 1 strand of each DK, and then a single strand here is light fingering, but you could also use fingering. You could also use 2 strands of mohair held together for the ruffle. I really like that idea. I'm not sure if I'll do it, but when I do the test call for this, I probably will mention it. That's a possibility. So that's the yarn. Construction. They are different constructions actually. The cardigan is a drop shoulder construction, which means we've got a nice, really wide bit here that's joined underneath, and then you pick the stitches up for the sleeves and knit the sleeve. The construction of the body, you start with the back piece and knit the back down to where you meet at the armhole, and then you pick up the stitches for one side and knit the front side, and then you pick up the stitches for the other side and knit the other side, and then you join the back and the side together, and then you work the rest of the body flat in this case. And it's exactly the same with the oh my gosh, it's not my day. I need to calm down a little bit. This day was doomed from the beginning. We overslept and woke up 20 minutes before we were supposed to be at nursery. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit flustered. The vest is the same. You work the back first and then you pick up the front and then join them at the underarm. However, because this is a vest, obviously you join the front panels in the middle and then work the body in the round. So even though you get 2 very similar looks, they're actually quite different constructions, and they both have their like difficult bits and easy bits. With the vest, you have different increase rates happening at different times because you've got the V increases and underarm increases. With the drop shoulder, there's no increase. Are there? Did I do any increases? No, with the drop shoulder, there are no increases. You just knit straight and then you cast on underarm stitches. So, but then you've got to work the body flat, so you've got more purling. And with the cardigan, you actually have the button band is built in. You can see the button band is worked attached to the main body, so you don't then have to go in and pick up your stitches and add the button band separately. And I did it like that because of obviously the way the collar is attached. If I then added the button band on next to it here, you'd have like a chunk where the button band kind of pokes out, and I wanted it to be a nice V. The buttons, by the way, for this cardigan are from The Button Shed on Etsy, and I originally bought these for my green Mary cardigan, and you could only buy them in 10s, and I only needed 5 for the cardigan, and I had 5 left over, so here we go. And I absolutely love them. I'll just show you close up. They're like this like iridescent shiny shell loveliness. My favourite type of button. I like tortoiseshell or wood. I only really like the look of natural looking buttons. I think when you put like, you know, those standard plastic buttons on your cardigans, it just gives me like school cardigan vibes. So yeah, the cardigan, you have an easier shoulder construction, but you're then working it flat with the button band. And with the vest, you have to incorporate the underarm increases at the same time as the V increases, and then joining in the middle and joining under the arms. And every size has a different rate because you have to take into account the depth of the V and the depth of the armhole. So much maths. But then once you get through all that, you get the joy of working in the round on the body, which is obviously a lot quicker and easier because you're just knitting round and round and round and round. You also then don't have sleeves afterwards. So though this is more complicated, it's overall a much quicker garment. So I have written the pattern for the cardigan. I mentioned this in my last video, but I actually wrote the pattern for this before I made it. I had obviously already done the vest before I'd done this, so I already knew about the increase rates for the V and all that kind of thing, and my depths and stuff. So I just went straight in and wrote it, and then I'm glad I did, because when I got to doing the sleeves, I realised that my armhole was far too deep and I had these massive sleeves, which I wasn't wanting for this design. So I saved myself a lot of ripping back by doing that first. Overall, it worked out really well, and then I basically knit my own pattern. And then as I went through it, I found little errors and little changes and stuff, like rib lengths and sleeve lengths and stuff. So it was a different way of doing things to my usual, and I really, really enjoyed it. I have now also written the pattern for the vest. Have I finished it? I think like 90%. I think there's one thing I just need to check. But basically, I went to rewrite the vest pattern with the new kind of shaping around the armhole, and I found it really, really difficult. There's a reason that they say set-in sleeves are hard, and even though there's no sleeve added to this, it's a similar shape to a set-in sleeve, close fit around the armhole. Even though this is actually a little bit longer in the armhole, it's still the same kind of deal. And it was all right for the first 5 sizes. It kind of worked out quite well. So the increase rate under the arms matched up with the depth of the armhole. But as I went further up in the sizes, it all went wrong. So in order to get from this width to this width, I had to do a certain amount of increases. And the amount of increases I need to get from here to here on the larger sizes was taking more and more depth. And by the time I got to size 9, my increases were starting up here, which obviously would not have worked on any body shape at all, because you don't want your increases to be going like this. You want them to come down and swiftly under there. And I got really frustrated with it and decided to take a break from it because it was just stressing me out. And then I spoke to Sophie, my dear friend, the Knit Pearl Girl, famous Knit Pearl Girl. And I was like, Sophie, what do? I can't make the increases work in the larger sizes. And she was like, are you increasing every other row? And I was like, yes. So you increase on the right side and you purl back on the other side. She was like, yeah, you have to increase every single row. And then she ever so kindly sent me the charts for her, is it Turney? Sorry, Sophie, I'm sorry. She has a brand new slipover design that's in testing at the moment, and it's all textured and lovely, and it's a very similar fit to the Chantilly. And she ever so kindly sent me over her chart so I could look at them and see how she did it, which was just beyond kind, because I could totally pinch her numbers, which I haven't and I never would, but it made me feel very happy that she was willing to do that for me. And I thought it was a really nice example of how the knitting community just wants each other to succeed. This is a weird little tangent, but I've been thinking this quite a lot recently. I was talking to my husband about Instagram and how good and how bad it could be, and the negative effects it's had on my life, and how it can be a real echo chamber and can really perpetuate unhealthy behaviours and all that kind of thing. However, in the knitting community, I feel like we're a rare bunch because, and I know not everybody's the same, and there are still plenty of issues within the community, but I think overall it feels different for me, because when I see somebody else succeed, all I feel for them is happiness and excitement, and I feel inspired. It doesn't feel like there's competition, and I feel like the rest of Instagram is all about competition. Who's got the most followers? Who gets the most likes? Who's the thinnest? Who's the prettiest? Who's got the most money? It's just ridiculous. Whereas in the knitting community, it's oh wow, that person's released a pattern. I'm so happy for them. Oh wow, that looks amazing. I'd love to make that. Can you tell me about it? It's just very, very different. And yeah, that was a massive tangent. But yeah, thank you, Sophie, for being so kind and lovely and helping me out. So I finished writing up the vest yesterday. It took me about 6 hours and it was a hardcore brain workout. And I feel like it's probably full of errors, and I think the editing is going to be an experience, that's for sure. But the plan for these designs is not to release them anytime soon, because we're going towards the warmer months now. Even though I personally like a cardigan in the summer, but vests aren't really that summery, I don't think. So what I'm going to do is, when I've got my next 2 designs finished editing, I'm going to do these ones. That way I can have a nice long editing process and not feel the pressure to get it done, take my time with it. And then I can have a really long testing process as well, because this is a new construction for me in both cases. I feel like there's probably going to be quite a lot of tweaking. Like with the souffle, the original souffle design, which I'll talk about in a little while, the test brought up some issues with the sleeve ease. Some of the sleeves on some of the sizes were far too big, and that's not something that I could have really foreseen. It's not something that the editors foreseen. They just didn't really work. Actually, I probably could have foreseen it if I'd checked the stitch count gauge measurements on the sleeves. But that's a lesson learned. But that was because it was a brand new construction for me. So I feel like there's probably going to be the same with these garments. So I'm going to do a really nice long test, probably all over the summer for these garments, with the aim to release them right at the beginning of the autumn, which I think would be just about right. You know, you get to the end of the summer and you start thinking, oh, I want something cozy and woolly and soft. So that's the plan for these designs. This one needs a little bit of a reblock, actually. When it comes to doing the collar, you actually knit the whole garment first and then you block it. You block it before you add the collar for 2 reasons. One, it makes picking up the stitches for the collar a lot easier because it's lying flat and you can see them all nicely and they're defined. But also it makes blocking the collar itself a lot easier. And the whole thing is quicker. You know, if you've got multiple layers of fabric lying, it takes much longer to dry because they like insulate each other. When you block the collar on its own, only the collar is wet, so it doesn't take quite as long. So your whole thing is blocked, and then you add your collar, and then you hang it up and you kind of pin the collar down to the garment whilst it dries. Because the collar naturally kind of wants to do this, you counteract that by blocking it. And I've worn this maybe 7 or 8 times now, and you can see I actually had this on under a coat, and I think this was folded up under my coat for like 2 hours, and it's kind of started to curl up a little bit. But the whole thing doesn't need to be re-washed at all. So what I'm going to do is just spray the collar just so it's a little bit damp, and then just pin it back down again, and we should be all good to go. So yeah, those are the Chantilly designs, obviously named after the after Chantilly cream. I don't know why I've gone down this road of patisserie themed pattern names, but I love it, and there are plenty more coming. I can tell you that now. So yes, I thought just the ruffly poofiness, just Chantilly seemed right. So there you go. That's the Chantilly designs, and this is technically my only finished both of these are technically my only finished objects. I do have one other finished object that I finished quite a while ago and couldn't show you, and now I think it's in the boot of my husband's car. So I'll save that for the next episode. So now we are on to whips. There is a bit of a theme amongst these whips, and that is I have run out of yarn for all of them. The first whip is a design you may know by now. It's a design I came up with about 6 months ago, and I've just been like, I don't know why I've not taken it further. I do know why I've not taken it further. It's because I'm really intimidated by it and a bit scared by it. But I spoke more about that in my Everything I Knit in 2021, and it is the Little Sparks. And this is as you can see, it's not a version for me, it's the child's version. So this is a design I came up with about 6 months ago. I've done the adult version and a kid's version, and I wrote the children's pattern and had it edited and then did nothing with it. I think I just psyched myself out completely and then started working on the school run collection and stop messaging me. I started working on the school run collection, and once I kind of let those numbers go out of my head, it's much difficult to go back to it. So what I've been doing with this one is I have basically gone back and test knit my own pattern, and I'm glad I did because I've made a lot of changes. There's been no changes to the actual numbers, to any of the maths. That was all good and sound, obviously, because it had been edited. But the way I'd written it just isn't the way I would do it now. And I could see that I've learned so much about pattern writing since I first wrote this one down about 6 months ago. And obviously that's through doing it, but it's also massively thanks to my tech editor. She's not just my tech editor, she's my teacher, and I've learned so much from her throughout by doing the souffle patterns. So now everything I've learnt from that, I'm applying back to this design. So I've gone back in and made some changes to how it's written. I realised that my sleeve length and my body lengths were all completely off. I've noticed actually with the Craft Yarn Council body standards, which is what most designers use for when it comes to, you know, the measurements of everything, they're kind of like a standard guideline. So I know that if I'm doing a 50-inch bust, then the average arm length, arm circumference, neck depth, all that kind of thing, it's all there for you to follow. So you make sure you've got a well-rounded garment. I don't actually use the Yarn Craft Council guides for women sizes anymore because they are not in depth enough for me. They don't have wrist circumference or anything like that. I use the Sister Mountain standards, which were recommended to me by my tech editor. But what I've noticed in the Yarn Craft Council is you don't get a measurement from here to here. You get like waist circumference, hip circumference, and I think you get the back of the neck to the waist, but you don't get underarm body length. And I'm like, why? That's like one of the most common. But I guess that depends on your yoke depth as well, so I don't really know. But I kind of made it up. I think when I did this, I just kind of guessed. And what I did this time was I had a look at the Tin Can Knit Strange Brew pattern, and I looked at the lengths suggested in there, and they looked a lot more realistic. So I've updated the lengths of the sleeves and the body, which should be a reflection of the body size. This will be in sizes 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10. 5 sizes for kids. And this one was originally meant for my son, who is almost 5 years old. He's going to be 5 in September. That took me too long to remember. And I didn't take my own advice and I didn't measure him. This is the size 3 to 4. I was thinking, well, he's 4 years old, he'll be fine in the 3 to 4. And he's not, he needs the 5 to 6. So this will actually be for my daughter, who is 2.5. So this will be a little bit too big for her initially, but they go through a big growth spurt when they're 3 years old. So I'm sure this will be just right for her come the autumn. And yeah, it's been really eye-opening going through this pattern again, and the reason I haven't finished it is because I ran out of yarn. Obviously my yarn suggestions for this pattern, again, I just completely made them up because I didn't know about how to figure out how to work out yardages and stuff, so I didn't order enough yarn. This is knit in the Drops Merino Extra Fine, and the reason I suggest that yarn is because it is soft, because it's merino for kids, not irritating, and you can chuck it in the wash because I feel like that's what you need from kids' garments. Not every time. Penny's got some 100% wool jumpers, she's got some alpaca jumpers, and I can take care of them fine. But I think overall for kids' garments, you're probably going to want something that's quite sturdy? No. That will handle being washed a million times. I do find it grows quite a lot, this yarn, but obviously you gauge swatch, so you should be able to counteract that growth. And yeah, so I ordered 1 of the contrast colour and 3 of the main colour, but I needed at least 3.5 to 4. So I've got 1 more coming. I just need to finish off this little sleeve and put the ribbing on the body. I didn't add the ribbing to the body because I was working on this in the car and I was struggling to measure it and I didn't know how much I needed to add on. I've also been working the sleeves on my sock wonders, and I can just about they're just about enough stitches to get this going. But yeah, these little miniature circular needles, oh my gosh, they've changed my life, especially when it comes to sleeves. I did this sleeve like yesterday in like 2 hours whilst watching Bridgerton. I've not finished yet, but I'm finding every excuse to watch it. I love Bridgerton. Do you watch Bridgerton? I blooming love it. It's ridiculous. It's just so unrealistic, but it's brilliant. So that is my Little Sparks mini. The plan for this design, once I finish this one and washed it and got my gauge, because again I think the gauge I wrote down for the original pattern isn't quite right, because I've done a red version of this, but it was in Filcolana Pania, and that's quite a light DK and not something that I would suggest for the pattern. So now I've got this as a sample, and once that's done, then there is no reason why I can't do a test call for it. It's not the most seasonally appropriate, and I was originally going to wait until the adult version was done as well and do the test calls at the same time, but I think if I wait for that, then we'll be waiting quite a long time, because again, I don't think the Little Sparks adult is going to be with us until probably the autumn. So maybe I will go ahead with that and do the test for the kids one, because like the souffles, the test for the original souffle brought up a lot of issues that also applied to the chunky souffle, so I was able to change that pattern before it went to test. And the test for the chunky souffle is, oh my gosh, it's going so well. It's been a week and a half and there's been one typo and that's it, and we've already got a finished chunky souffle, and it's mad. Yeah, with the original souffle it was just, there was a lot of edits and a lot of chatter, so I guess if I do a test score for the Little Sparks mini, that will probably help out in the long run for the big one. We'll see how brave I am. We've come to the end of the original souffle test now, and so the end of the souffle test and the start of the chunky souffle test overlapped a little bit, and my brain was a bit like, oh, I've got two at the same time, can I handle this? But it was all right. And speaking of souffles, I will show you my next whip, and this is something that I have not shared on the internet yet, so this is an exclusive. Before we do, I'm just going to show you the original souffle one more time. You've probably seen this already. Oh gosh, we're massively out of focus. This is the original souffle. It's knit in mohair. It's sheer on the top, solid on the bottom with this lovely ruffle. And I officially have a launch date for it. I was hoping it would be a little bit earlier, but life just gets in the way, and my last thing I need to do with it is transfer like the test pattern into the final design. I do my final PDF patterns in InDesign, and I'm very, very new to InDesign. Fortunately, I have a husband and a sister who know that kind of thing really, really well. Unfortunately, they're both really busy at the moment. So I'm being a big girl and I'm doing it myself, and then I just need to get it checked over by someone who knows what they're doing to make sure it's all correct. And then I need to get my editor to look over it one more time to make sure there's been no errors in the transfer from test pattern to final pattern, and then it will be ready to go. And my release date for the souffle is going to be Friday the 8th of March, which is in about a week and a half from day of recording. And oh my god, I'm so excited and also so terrified. Honestly, it's thrilling. Like, I've had plenty of people say they're really excited for it and they're going to knit it and they're going to buy it, which is great. But the actual putting it out there in the real world, it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying, but it's thrilling as well. And I know it will be a really, really good day. So the little souffle, the original souffle, is coming to you next Friday, and the chunky souffle is going to be early May, I think. The testers have got 5 to 6 weeks, or is it 6 to 7 weeks? Can't remember. But they're flying through it because it's an 8mm needle project. It's so quick. So you never know, that might be coming a little earlier. We will see. So speaking of souffles, also, oh yeah, the petite souffle, there's the children's version as well, which is currently being edited. My editor is working on it today, in fact. So that test call will be coming pretty soon, depending on how the edit goes. So yeah, that's 3 souffle patterns coming to you. And guess what? And there is a fourth. Honestly, when I finished the petite souffle, I was like, that's it. I'm done with this design now. It's done. Move on to the next one. But then I was like, oh, but what if? So when I was doing the test for the original souffle, one of my testers did it with basically 0 ease. So it was fitted. It was a red one. I think I showed a picture of it in the last podcast, but I just loved the way it looked. I was like, it looks so different, and I think it's really, really cool. And then I also heard a lot of people have been saying, oh, I want to make one in linen, I want to make one in cotton, I want to make one in silk. And it was like, okay, so there's there's like get it, for this design, but not necessarily in the mohair. So I thought, do you know what? I'm gonna make a summer souffle. And I was looking through my yarn stash and I was like, what could I use for it? And I realised that I had some Knitting for Olive cotton merino. I only bought 3 balls of it because my original plan was to do like a fingering weight cami with it. And I started to swatch it and I was like, I haven't got it in me to work a whole garment on 3mm needles. I just can't. So I thought, do you know what? I'll hold it double and use it for my summer souffle. Now I've run out because 3 balls of yarn does not make a DK weight garment, but I have ordered some more and it'll probably be with me next week. It's going to be difficult to show you this because of the stage that I'm at with it. It's quite funny, but I also decided to show it you because I thought it was a really interesting way to show you a little bit more about the construction of all the souffles, because obviously they're all similar. But here we go. You really can't tell, can you? So yes, this is the Knitting for Olive cotton merino cotton. It's 50-50 basically, and it's gorgeous. I think the colour is dark sage or something like that. It's one of the sage colours anyway, and to be fair, it is much darker. Actually, you've got quite a true representation there. That's coming up pretty spot on. It's darker than it looked on the website, which is a thing that I'm seeing is quite common with the Knitting for Olive pictures. You don't fully always know exactly what you're going to get. But I am obsessed with this yarn. I find 100% cotton a little bit too heavy and not the nicest to wear, especially like DK or Aran weight. Maybe fingering weight, but again, I can't do a whole project in fingering at the moment, I haven't got it in me. But because this is a split, merino and cotton, it just has, it's soft. You can feel that there's cotton in there as well, but it's just light as well. Now I have already blocked this because I was naughty. I started this without swatching. I thought, do you know what? I'll just take my numbers for the original souffle and knit it in this yarn on the same needles, and then I thought, well, I'll block it after I've done the yoke and the sleeves just to make sure that everything's all right. When I did block it, the gauge is slightly different. It's 2 stitches different, which has meant I thought I was knitting a size 4, but I've actually come up with a size 3. Sorry, the door went and I cannot remember the last thing I said. But anyway, so how is the summer souffle different from the original souffle? Well, actually quite a lot. The original souffle is an intermediate level, or maybe brave beginner, but there's definitely some techniques in there that take some kind of knowledge and some skill. One of them being the I-cord edge and the folded over hems. So with the summer souffle, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to play about with the fit, but I also want to aim this for to be a slightly easier pattern, which it is. So the first change you can see is that we've got a ribbed neckline. I wanted this to look t-shirty and a little bit more casual. So I thought, yes, 1x1 ribbed neckline. And because of that, we also have short rows in the back to raise the neckline at the back a little bit. And we also have the rib on the cuff. The original souffle has folded over cuffs on the arm and on the body, but again, I wanted a little bit more of a relaxed, casual look, and therefore it's much easier design as well. I would put the summer souffle at, advanced beginner, whereas the original souffle is definitely intermediate. And obviously with the original souffle, one of its main features is the poofy sleeve. you can see that there's quite a lot of extra fabric in the sleeve, and then you have a rapid decrease at the cuff, which creates a kind of like poofy, fluffy souffle look. Whereas with the t-shirt, I've gone for a fitted sleeve. So there is no dramatic increase on the sleeves. It's just designed to fit tight to the yarn. I think I always feel like ease is like completely up to the knitter. There's recommended ease, of course, but in the end, it's up to you to decide how much ease you want. So with this pattern, I'm aiming for the sizes to be in 3-inch increments. Normally I have 4 inches, at least 4 inches between sizes. So the souffle is recommended to be 2 to 4 inches. Therefore, you should always be able to find a size that works for you. Whereas this one is going to be 0 to 3 inches ease. So for this is a size 3, so on me it will be 0 ease, which will be the tight fit that I was after. But if I'd knit a size 4, then I'd have 3 inches ease, which would be slightly looser, slightly more relaxed. So I think it's up to you really in the end, but by having small increments between sizes, it should mean that you're able to play around with the fit more if you want. You could go 2 sizes up and have a really, really loose one. It's up to you. So that's the summer souffle, and I'm desperate for the yarn to arrive because I'm really enjoying working on it and I really want to wear it. We had a little moment of spring summer last week, and it was like 15 degrees outside. We had a barbecue on the terrace. It got a little bit chilly by like 4 o'clock, but we had a little glimpse of what's to come, and I'm like, I want more summery knitwear. Last year, the only summer knitwear I made was the Seaborn Tee by lovely Hannah of Herb Garden Knitwear, and even then it was towards the second half of the summer, I think, so I didn't get a huge amount of wear out of it. Whereas this year, what are we in now? We're at the end of March, beginning of April, and I'm like, yes, let's get the summer stuff ready. So that's the summer souffle. There you go, little exclusive for you there. And speaking of summery items, we have my third and final whip. I need a coffee, 1 sec. So next up is my third and final whip, and of course it is my own design, and again this is an exclusive. This has not been shared on Instagram. This has only been shared with a few friends, and I'm really excited by this design, and I've not been able to work on it for a little while because I ran out of yarn. Honestly, I've been casting things on knowing that I don't have enough yarn, but I just can't stop myself. So let's get it ready for you. If you have seen my Unravel vlog, you will know that I purchased 2 skeins of Opus by Walcott Yarns. And my original plan was to make a kid's little sparks with it. However, it turns out that it was not the right weight. Opus is like a sport weight yarn, and what I needed was their new one. I can't remember what it's called. They basically got a new yarn which is the same as Opus, but it's worsted weight, so it would have been much better suited for the little sparks. And I also decided in the end that it wasn't appropriate for a kid's garment. First of all, it's not cheap. It's £24 a skein, and I just think that's too expensive for a kid's garment, something they're probably only going to wear for a year or two, and it's quite delicate. It is a Argentinian merino and baby alpaca blend, and I'd be too scared to put my kids in it, so I didn't think it was appropriate to suggest it as a yarn for one of my designs if I wouldn't use it for that design myself. So I had these 2 skeins of Opus sat in my stash, not really knowing what to do with them. And then out of the blue, inspiration struck, and I was like, oh, I know what I want to make, and I know what I'm going to make it with, even though I know I'm not going to have enough yarn. So I bought 1 skein of white. This obviously isn't the original skein because I have now bought more. This is the Walcott Opus, and first of all, I mean, I just love the branding. I think it's super cool. And the yarn itself, oh my gosh, it's exquisite. It's a luxury yarn for sure, at £24 a skein. Now it's 100 grams. I think it's up there, you know, to make an adult size jumper out of it, you're looking at 100 quid. But it is stunning. It is one of the most softest, most beautiful yarns I've ever like touched in my life, and I can imagine it's going to pill initially because it's really soft fibres, but I'm willing to put up with that. And the other colour that I bought was this yellow, which is what originally attracted me to this. I'd already been to the Walcott yarn store once, and then on the second way round I just looked down, and right down at the bottom was this stunning yellow. Now I can't remember, I think it's called Bumblebee or something along those lines. Honestly, my camera's doing a really good job today because this is a really, really true representation of what this colour is. And it's just this golden, sunshine, warm, honey yellow, and I love it. Which is strange for me because I'm not usually someone who wears colour. But when you take a bright colour like this, I couldn't wear this on its own, it would be too much for me. But when you pair it with the white that tones it down quite a lot, then I think I can handle it. I should probably just show it to you, shouldn't I? This is, wait for it, the Millefoy. Yes, more patisserie themed pattern names, and it's called the Millefoy because of, this is Drops Melody Fluff. You know who you are. So continuing with the theme of patisserie themed patterns, I was looking, I've got a book all about patisserie, and I was flicking through it looking for inspiration, and I saw Millefoy, and I was like, oh, I do love a Millefoy. All those lovely like layers of flaky pastry. How could I translate that to a pattern? How could I do layers and all that, kind of mimic that kind of flaky, small, delicate layers of puff pastry? And then this idea came to me. So as you can see, it is stripy, but it's not just yellow and white stripes. We also have garter bumps running through the white. So it's mainly white with a little bit of yellow running through it. And I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with it. I've never done a raglan design before at all. I've knit raglans, but I've always been a little bit intimidated by them. I think by the maths, but actually now I've got my head into it, it's really quite simple. You just need to be aware of yoke depth and like sleeve and body increases basically. Which way around did it say? Yes, it's this way around. I'm so pleased with it. My extra yarn for it arrived like yesterday or the day before, and I haven't had a chance to get going on it yet. But the moment I've finished this podcast, I'm going to be winding this up and getting on with it. So yeah, you can see from quite far away, the fact that it's that bright yellow and white stripe, it just kind of tones it all down and turns it into this one kind of, it reads as like a pale yellow rather than bright yellow. And obviously because, you know, illusions of the eyes. So yeah, as I said, it's a raglan top down in the round, and I have done a 2x2 ribbed collar because the raglan itself is 2 stitches, so I thought it would be nice to continue that 2x2 in the collar into the raglan. And I've put the short rows in the collar because if I put short rows into this design, then we would end up with like extra stripes and it would look really obvious. Also, doing short row shaping across raglan increases, it's not difficult, like physically, it just takes some concentration and keeping track of everything you're doing, and I was not in the mindset for figuring that out, so I thought I'll just put the short rows in the back of the collar, that way we're not messing about with this bit. And it took me 5 attempts to get the collar right. It's tricky. I was talking to Lizzie from Hive Knits about this because she's also doing a 2x2 collar raglan at the moment. We had exactly the same issue at exactly the same time, but we weren't talking to each other about it, so we really could have helped each other out. But you basically need multiples of 4 between each raglan, but those multiples of 4, when they're divided, they need to be divided into an odd number. Complicated. And then also, when I first started it, my beginning of round was at the back. So you had the beginning of the round running down the back of the garment, and even when I implemented like a jogless stripe method, you could still see it, and I just wasn't happy with it. So what I did in the end was I have hidden my beginning of round in a raglan. So my beginning of round is between these two raglan stitches, so you don't see that jog. I'm really pleased with myself about that. Like, I think that's quite clever, bravo me. Then obviously once we've joined in the round on the body, you will have a beginning of round, and I've implemented a jogless stripe method on both the garter and the yellow. And yes, you can still kind of see it. I think it's unavoidable that you'll be able to see that beginning of round, but I think I've hidden it reasonably well. My camera cut me out at 30 minutes. So as you can see, I've done one sleeve, and it looks like it's quite a short sleeve. However, with this stitch having the garter bumps in it, when you knit it, it shrinks up and kind of like contracts, but when you block it, it stretches quite a lot. So I've had to design this by row gauge, which is not something I've done before. At the time anyway, I've had to do the Chantilly vest by row gauge and this by row gauge, but only slightly, just for kind of like the top bit. This whole thing is by row gauge, because if you go by oh, who's that? Looks like there's going to be an acquisitions section of this podcast. Anyway, yes. Oh, a little bit out of breath now, going up and down the stairs. So if I went by measurements, if I said knit the sleeve to this measurement, when you block it, it will grow loads. So an interesting new thing for me to get my head around. So I'm going to be working on this one along with the summer souffle, I think simultaneously, and then get these to my editor as soon as possible, because I would really like to have these done and ready for summer. It is April. Let's say editing takes 3 weeks, and then testing will take 6 weeks. Then you've got May, April, May, June, July. These could be released by, which I think is, kind of middle of the summer, but I think it will be fine. So there you go, that's all my whips. I'm mega excited about all of them. I'm feeling so inspired at the moment. My knitting mojo is strong, and I'm really enjoying working on all my designs at the moment. Honestly, I cannot keep up with my own brain. At the moment, I have 5 hours in the week to myself without the kids when they're both at nursery. And I do put Penny in for an extra day sometimes, because Jeff is in 2 days a week. I do put Penny in sometimes as well on a Thursday if I need the extra time. But I don't get a lot of quiet time to myself in the week. And at the weekends, I want to spend that time with my husband and with my family and doing nice things. So I don't have a lot of time to work on things at the moment, and it varies week to week. Some weeks I've got no time to work on stuff, some weeks I've got quite a lot of time to work on things. But after Easter, my son will be going in for an extra day, and come September, Jeff will be at school. I'm not ready. I'm so ready, I can't wait for all the time. And Penny will be in nursery 2 days a week, so I will get a lot more time to work on things. Overall, my plan was to make it to this September with this and see if designing is a viable career choice for me. If you follow me for a while, you'll know that I'm currently a full-time mum to my kids. But before I was a mother, I had many different careers. I worked in hospitality for most of my adult life, and I worked my way up, and I was at management level, but the higher I went up with it, the more I hated it. The thing I loved about waitressing was I just loved waitressing. I was really good at it. But the higher up you went in management, the less I enjoyed it, and also the hours. I got to a point where I was sick of working evenings and weekends and never seeing my friends or my boyfriend, now husband. So I then worked in a bakery for a little while, which I absolutely loved. I worked in the bakery for a year. It unfortunately didn't work out because my boss and myself we had very different working styles, and I always struggled to understand what he meant, and I now realise that is because I'm autistic, and he was like the most neurotypical person in the world, and I just could never understand him, and I never understood why I didn't understand him. So I've finally been able to make peace with the fact that the bakery didn't work out. And I now know that if I was in that situation again, I'd be able to make my own working life a lot easier. But yeah, and then after the bakery, I had my own wedding calligraphy business for a little while, which I really, really enjoyed. But the act of the personalisation of things meant the thing that I loved, which was calligraphy, basically became like 70% admin, 30% doing what I liked. So once I got pregnant, I physically couldn't do that anymore because I couldn't get in the right position to write. I also did like blackboard art and pub like artwork as well, and again I couldn't get in the right positions because of my pregnant tummy. So I never went back to that. But now I'm getting to the point in life where my kids are looking like they're going to school, like September next year, both kids will be in school. I'm like, what am I going to do? I do not want to like be a homemaker for the rest of my life. I think it's absolutely brilliant if that's what you do want to do and that fills you with joy. But for me, I feel like I want something different. I've been doing this for nearly 5 years now and I'm ready for a change. Moving forward, I want to do something that fulfills me as a person, but also means I can still do all the parenting things that I want to do, like doing school runs and stuff, and being able to work from home, so I don't have to rely on childcare and school holidays and all that kind of thing. And then when my kids are old enough to look after themselves, I'll have all the time in the world to work on my own career. So yeah, moving up, God, it's so rambly. Moving up to September, the idea was I'll make it to September this year and kind of see how I'm getting on, how sales are going, if I'm enjoying it. And I'm like, I can already tell you that I'm ready to keep going until next September, and then that's when both kids will be in school and I'll effectively be working full time again. Well, part to full, we'll see. But yeah, that's a little bit about my future career prospects. Now, I wasn't going to do an acquisition section, but now I've had a little delivery, I do have something to show you. This is exciting actually because I've ordered some yarn to pair with some other yarn. My husband occasionally has to go over and work in Sweden, and he works right at the bottom of Sweden, right adjacent to Copenhagen. So when he's in Sweden, he can go over to Copenhagen, and when he goes over to Copenhagen, I make him go to the yarn shops. And last time he went, he got me this. He originally got me these two colours, a red and a grey. And the next time he went back, I got him to get me more of the white so that I can use these together in one project, because the other colours I couldn't really get them to work in one project. This is the, oh my god, I don't even know, Dansk Pelsult 82. Inga from Knitting Traditions assures me that this is a really nice yarn. I have no idea what it is. And it's basically, yeah, a 100% Danish yarn. Look at that colour. Oh, amazing. Love it. And when I asked my husband to get me some more of this, my original plan was to use this for my favourite things knitwear sweater number, I want to say 12, basically the broken rib long sleeved. But I looked into that pattern a bit more and it's not the most size inclusive. It falls short by about 3 or 4 sizes. So I thought, okay, well, I will do a petite knit Friday tee, but make it long sleeved, which is basically the same pattern, a raglan broken rib. When I looked into that pattern, I saw that it's fingering weight, which this is, it's fingering weight. However, I don't know if I could handle wearing this in like a close fitting garment on its own. I need something to soften it up. So I thought I will hold it with mohair and make something else that's kind of like stripy. This is my main colour, this is my stripe. So when I started this bad boy, which is sport weight on 3.5mm needles, I thought, well, if I hold fingering and mohair together, then we've got a DK. I could do a sweater version in DK. Oh! So you've got your summer t-shirt milfoil and your jumper version milfoil. So obviously I needed something to hold with these, and that is what is in this bag. Now, I haven't seen it. I don't know if they match or not. Shall we find out? Woohoo! So I went with the good old Drops Kid Silk. Look at that for a match. Oh, gorgeous. This is number 1, so I think it's just white or maybe off-white. Oh man, that's the most perfect match. And then I went with number 33, which I believe is called Rust. Now, this is a pretty good match, to be fair. I think this is going to tone down the brightness of this a little bit. I need to swatch. I've just got 2 of these, so I don't think I'll need much more than that. And if this isn't a match, if I need something a bit more orangey, then I know for sure I'm going to use this eventually because it's Rust. These look a bit different. Are they the same dye lot? Yeah. So there you go. So I've got the yarn for that ready. Oh, also, oh no. Oh no. Oh gosh. These are definitely not the same colour. I also ordered an extra ball to finish this off, but they are not the same colour at all. Oh no. Like, they are completely different. I must have chosen the wrong one. I mean, that's not just a dye lot difference, is it? That's a completely different colour. That's just not a slightly different dye lot. I will have to look into that. But never mind. Oh, I'm so excited by this now. It's going to take like all my strength not to immediately cast this on because the weather has taken a turn for the chilly side again. So now I'm like, I want to make jumpers, not t-shirts. We'll see. So let's move on to some knitty chat. We've kind of already slightly slid into the knitty chat, but I have got some recommendations for thee. Last episode I did a segment called Hot New Releases and it went down quite well and I really enjoyed doing it. I've always tried my best to recommend new podcasters and smaller designers because, you know, nobody needs to be told about Patina again or Andrea Mowry again, both designers of which I love, but you don't need to hear about their designs from me because you see them everywhere. So I always try to make a point of sharing potentially lesser known or smaller designers. Where's my phone? And I was struggling to find new designers with a body of work that I felt like I could recommend. It also took a lot of research and all that kind of thing. So I've done a slightly different thing where I will recommend newly released patterns, some of which will be smaller designers, some of which might be designers you've heard of. But I just thought it was a nice way to kind of give you guys some inspiration that isn't just my designs. Here we go. So the first pattern I'm going to tell you about is not just one pattern, it's 3, and it is the Made You collection by lovely Vanessa of Ocean Knits. Now, the Made You collection is like nothing I've ever seen before. There's the Made You Look, Made You Fall, and I think there's a Made You Dream as well. But the collection she's just released is the, oh God, is it Made You Look or Made You Fall? So it's the Made You Fall. There is the Made You Fall blouse. There is the Made You Fall dress, and the Made You Fall, oh, where's the other one? And the Made You Fall top. So there's the Made You Fall top, blouse and dress. And it's made like M-A-I-D, like Milkmaid. It's like this kind of cottagecore vibe. And it's got the kind of the booby bit and then the tight underbust and then the kind of shoulder sleeves, and the top has just got like, I think you can do it as like a crop or a sleeve, or you can do the full sleeve blouse, or there's a dress. And the thing about these patterns is they are 100% customizable on the fit. The moment she released them, I bought the Made You Look blouse straight away because even though I know I'm probably not going to have the chance to cast it on anytime soon, I want that garment in my life. And I was looking through the pattern and she basically gives you all the maths to figure out how to get the stitch counts for your exact bust, your exact waist, your exact underarm, and sleeve length. And it's just incredible. The amount of work that has gone into these patterns, I can only imagine. Vanessa, you are a superstar. Ocean Knits kind of was traditionally more chunky things, but more recently she's moved into kind of the lighter weight things. And these designs, they're just oh, they're so brilliant. I hope I would have the confidence to make and wear the dress one day. But it was actually when I saw one of my test knitters for the souffle, lovely Gemma, Knits by Gem, did like a pale pink fluffy blouse version, and there was a picture of her wearing it with just some like really nice fitting jeans, and I was like, wow, like this is a design that's quite different, and that for me personally, I'd be like, I'm not sure I've got the confidence to wear this. But seeing it in that situation, I was like, actually, this is really wearable, and it looks really good. So I love Gemma's version. And I think when I make the blouse, because I really like the long sleeve blouse version the most, I'd quite like to make it in like a brown, like a chocolatey brown, or maybe a rusty brown or something like that. I think I could get a lot of wear of it in the autumn like that. So that's your first hot new release, is the Made You Fall collection by Ocean Knits. Oh, my battery's flashing. One sec. Back in the room. The next pattern I'd like to suggest for you is not only a new pattern, but it's the very first pattern. This is a headband, and it's called the Fisherman's Headband because it's in Fisherman's Rib. I feel like half Fisherman's Rib and Fisherman's Rib is kind of like having a moment at the moment. And so this is a really beautiful simple headband, but it's got two different ways that you do like the front like knotty joiny bit, and it is by Leah Klein, and it's her very first pattern. Leah was one of my test knitters on the corset socks, and I know she's also working on a garment design with a very fascinating and clever feature to it, so hopefully we'll get to see that soon. But for now, her very first pattern is the Fisherman's Headband, so I encourage you to go and check that out, especially those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, as we are heading into autumn for you guys. And my third pattern suggestion for those of you in my hemisphere who are moving forward to spring is not a hot new release, but it is a new to me, and it is a design again by one of my test knitters, and it is a summer crop top. It is called the Kawaii Crop Top, I think, and it is by one of my test knitters for the souffle, lovely Julia Sachiko. Now, when I first found her as a test knitter, obviously I had a little look on her Instagram, and I saw this crop top design, and when you see the picture of it, you'll see why it appealed to me. It is a gorgeous, really beautiful little simple crop top, but it has this big wide ruffle all the way around the bottom, and you know how I feel about a ruffle. And I've never made a knitted cami, and I've toyed with the idea of doing like my favourite things knitwear, like broken rib cami. But something's always like stopped me from casting it on. But when I saw this one, I was like, oh yes, that's right up my street. So cute with like high-waisted shorts or a skirt, something like that. So that is my other pattern suggestion for you. I think it's been out for about a year, and I really hope I give myself the time to cast one on, because I really want one. So there you go. There is some pattern designs inspiration for you guys that are a little bit different to mine. Finally, I've got a YouTube channel suggestion for you. Now, last time I told you all about Kalila from the Copy Cali YouTube channel. She does knitting podcasts and vlogs, and via her channel I found Alexandra's Garn, which is the next YouTube channel I'm going to recommend to you. Now, Alexandra, she's so funny. And she's funny in a way that she doesn't intend to be funny, which is my favourite kind of humour. Honestly, every single one of her videos, I am literally laughing out loud. She does like a week of knitting videos. She's done a few podcasts. She lives in Sweden, and she does a lot of petite knit and a lot of kind of more of those popular designs. But the way she films, it's just so charming and funny, and she doesn't take herself seriously, and it's really relaxed, but she's also got a really good editing style, which I also appreciate. So I highly recommend you go and check out Alexandra's channel. She's brilliant. I get excited every time she uploads a video. So I think that brings us to the end. I have no idea how long I've been filming for. It feels like quite a long one, but then it always feels like a long one. Let me know in the comments below which of the designs I've shown you today is your fave, which you're looking forward to. If you are, don't worry if you're not. And let me know what you've been working on too, and if there are any hot new releases that you think that I should know about and you think that I should share. So thank you ever so much for joining me for this interesting episode. The next episode, I think it'll be, I don't know if it'll be a podcast or it'll be a vlog, but the next time I post is going to be around my 1 year podiversary. I can't believe it. 10th of April will be 1 year since I posted my first podcast, and that blows my mind. Like, when I think about where we were a year ago, we were right in the middle of our house renovation. I was filming in my kitchen, surrounded by like bare plasterboard, and I'd started like dipping my toe into designing, but hadn't fully really committed yet. And oh god, it's just crazy how different things are a year on. I hadn't really made my like mental health discoveries yet, and I was definitely still kind of in the midst of my eating disorder recovery, and it's just crazy how different things are a year on. But I won't reminisce on that too hard. I'll save that for the next episode, which will be a little bit more about how far we've come in a year. So thank you for joining me. Thank you if you've made it to the end of all this waffling, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.